Okay, according to the UN resolution, which was passed after Israel's withdrawal from southern Lebanon, Hezbollah is supposed to remain north of the Litani River. Israel is moving past the Litani River, and it's issuing evacuation orders for Lebanese citizens in Saida, which is it's north. So they're moving past any UN resolution. They're trying to create a buffer zone that goes deep into Lebanon, and they're failing to do so. So right now they're just looking for more and more tactical victories. Israel's strength is in using heavy US weapons from thousands of feet away from any combatant, as well as Wile E. Coyote nerd attacks like sending exploding pagers to thousands of people in Lebanon. But it's so far demonstrated that it's unable to actually establish on the ground a buffer zone. And so it's terrorizing people in Dahieh, specifically in southern Beirut. I mean, look at these scenes. This is following attacks, I think, 48 hours ago in Dahieh. And it's just entire neighborhoods have been set on fire. Bunker buster bombs have been unleashed everywhere. And what appears to have taken place there is actually closer to the Beirut airport. Israel attempted to assassinate the person who was supposedly appointed as Nasrallah's successor, Hashem Safieddin, who is supposedly in a bunker. So it unleashed a fire belt with like 12 bunker buster strikes, which of course the US keeps supplying. We don't know how many civilians have been killed, but over 2,000 have been killed in under 2 weeks, which is more than Israel killed in 2006. This is horrifying.
Yeah. And meanwhile, of course, the massacres continue in Gaza as well, which the world already was largely ignoring, but even paying less attention now because of what Israel's doing in Lebanon. And the targets of these strikes, I mean, clinics, hospitals, medical centers, the Hezbollah media office. Both of us, Max, have been to that area. They're basically they're implementing what they literally call the Dahieh doctrine, which is deliberately targeting civilians as a means to put pressure on Hezbollah. They formalized that as an official military doctrine named after the area of Lebanon that they're now bombing mercilessly, and not just around Beirut, but they've also bombed a major crossing on the Lebanon-Syria border, where tens of thousands of people have been trying to flee. They've now bombed it, and the road is closed. So, and again, I can't share myself, Max, but if you see, I put it there at the bottom. There it is. So they bombed this road, making this road now cut off. So for 300,000 people, I believe, have already fled back into Syria, but now many more cannot return because of this. And the pretext, Israel says that Hezbollah was using it to smuggle weapons. No evidence presented, but of course, even if they were, what right does Israel have to bomb a road in another country's territory that's not theirs, especially given the consequences? It's going to cut off and leave hundreds of thousands of more people stranded who can't return to their homes. So they're just, again, as is in their official military doctrine, their target is civilians, and desperate civilians at that, people trying to flee.
Yeah, and in trying to target Hezbollah's social services, what they're trying to do is separate Hezbollah from Lebanese society and from their constituency, which comprises millions of Shia. They also have some support among the Christian population. They provide the poorest people of Lebanon with the ability to tread water in an economy that has been destroyed, particularly since the mysterious Beirut port blast. The destruction, the targeted attack on Hezbollah's media office was significant as well. It's the same thing that Israel has done to Hamas in Gaza, which is to try to kill anyone associated with the government simply because it was run by Hamas. So this could be municipal workers, people who work to try to supply water, fix pipes, electricity, anything. I visited Hezbollah's media office, I think in 2011, as Hezbollah was deciding on whether to enter the Syrian war. And I met with Ibrahim Moussaoui, who's now a parliamentarian for Hezbollah. They serve in Lebanon's parliament. He is a former Rhodes Scholar who studied at Oxford, extremely articulate, thoughtful person who has met with Noam Chomsky, Cy Hirsch, lots of journalists. We just had a background discussion, but you go into the media office and it's, it just feels like you're in a small press organization's office. There's no weapons. There's no sign of anything military in the area. And Israel's just trying to eradicate Hezbollah as they have failed to do with Hamas. They're now basically sending no one gets out alive orders to entire areas of Dahieh. And the way they're doing this, and this should be an international scandal. I mean, if we really had diplomacy and our government wasn't joined at the hip with Israel, this should be a massive scandal. But Israel is issuing orders to paramedics not to go into Dahieh, warning that they will kill them. I think yesterday, 35 first responders were killed in Lebanon. There's no description of this as savagery in U.S. media or by State Department officials. Savage is only reserved for the official enemies who resist Israel. This is Dahieh, who is a journalist based in Beirut. The genocidal Israeli army called the civil defense and emergency teams in Beirut and told them not to try to go to the strike locations or they will get bombed. I remember when there was something called human rights in this world. May God be with the oppressed everywhere. And these are the text messages from Israel. Paging World Central Kitchen. Paging Jose Andres. The same thing is happening in Beirut. Where are you? They killed your people trying to provide food in Gaza. Are you doing fundraisers for Kamala? Probably.
Speaking of which, there's a new article in The Atlantic by Franklin Foyer, who's very close to the Biden administration people. He's basically like a Biden administration.
Yeah, I went to elementary school with him.
No, there you go. There you go. You guys took different paths, obviously, in journalism, but it's good you have that bond. And one of the things that he reports is that the plan for Israel, like the line he uses about World Central Kitchen is that Israel loves World Central Kitchen, and their plan was for World Central Kitchen to basically replace UNRWA. The UN.
That was what we reported at the Grayzone, and we were attacked and called conspiracists in the Washington Post for reporting that. Wyatt Reed specifically.
That's exactly what you were saying at the time. But the problem is then Israel went ahead and killed a convoy of World Central Kitchen employees, and so that put an end to that plan. So they sabotaged their own agenda of undermining UNRWA by killing the members of the group that they wanted to take their place. So that's one nugget in the Franklin Foyer story. There's others, which I think we're going to get to, but let's talk
find it in the notes.
Let's talk for a second, Max, about what's happened to Israel when they've sent in ground forces into Lebanon, which I think helps explain why they're launching in these airstrikes. We talked about this last week. Israel does not want to fight directly against Hezbollah. Their strategy all along is to target civilian infrastructure and make life miserable for the people of the country in the hopes that that will do the job for it in weakening their adversary, Hezbollah. And what happened just the other day when Israeli forces went into Lebanon, at least 8 Israeli soldiers were killed, at least. I mean, there's different accounts, but the minimum number of soldiers killed on the Israeli side is 8. And
that's all that they've announced, but we're talking about dozens of critical injuries. There's reports that they were nearly kidnapped, which would have probably triggered another Hannibal directive. You can see them being medevaced. Dozens of ambulances were waiting on the Israeli side of the border. This is from the IGAZ Special Forces team that was specifically trained to fight the Radwan unit of Hezbollah, which is based in southern Lebanon and poised for this kind of fight. Israel's putting forward some kind of statistics like 250 Hezbollah fighters killed. How do we know that they killed that many? We'll never know. But these are significant losses. This was around the town of Dahieh, which has faced numerous attacks by mostly the Israeli Air Force as well as artillery since October 7th. And we can go back to 2006 to the Battle of Bint Jbeil, towards the end of that failed Israeli assault on Lebanon, when Israel lost 22 soldiers in one day in a kind of failed like Pickett's charge. These are villages that are very well defended. They even have like hundreds of local guard members who exacted damages on Israel in 2006. There were many more Israeli forces in those areas than Hezbollah fighters. And Israel's demonstrating once again that its strength is in the most cowardly attacks possible, and that face-to-face against real men, exploding pagers don't work. So why are they doing that? They're simply doing it because there's nothing left to do in Gaza. And if you are plugged into the Al-Qassam Brigade's Telegram channel, for example, or anywhere else where it disseminates video of its activities, its operations in Gaza, Israel is still suffering attacks from Khan Yunis to Rafah. There's one video that came out yesterday showing a small Al-Qassam team hitting and disabling like 5 Israeli armored vehicles. So they're still active. Israel can say it's in mop-up mode, but there's no sign that they're going to ever complete their victory in Gaza. So they're just moving north into what looks like another Quagmire, and they're killing thousands and thousands of civilians in the process.
Yeah, there's been more massacres at schools where people are taking shelter. This is just like routine now. I wonder if there are any shelters that haven't been hit by Israel so far in this genocide, which turns 1 year old in just a few days. And again, because of the intensity of what's happening with Lebanon, Israel's attack on Lebanon, plus now you have Iran for the first time in a forceful way responding with its counterattack to Israel a few days ago. I mean, Gaza now continues to just be overshadowed by everything else.